Can you animate a walk like a pro? The better you can, the better you'll be able to animate more advanced shots like this. Stick around to the end of this video to discover how walks exactly relate to more advanced body mechanics shots. Wait, Rusty. I know everything there is to know about walks. Really? What a bold assumption. Let's find out in day 4 of the 28-day animation challenge and put that knowledge to the test, shall we? I bet you're gonna learn something new. And hey, on that note, if you are new here, just click on the card up here and you can dive into all the details of how the 28-day challenge works so that you can learn more than you would at a traditional college for free. So here's the game plan. We're going to be animating a progressive walk, so Aang will be actually walking forward across the screen. Why do this instead of a cycle? We're getting used to moving a character around in 3D space before the animations get harder. And it makes a lot more sense from a real world body mechanics standpoint, right? Because we don't actually slide our feet in real life when we're walking. So this is especially helpful too if you're new to walks. How are we going to do this? Every normal walk has key poses that make it a typical walk, like these. If you don't already know these poses, pause the video here. And I also recommend you check out the Animator Survival Kit for a ton of awesomeness. I'll link to this and more in the description below. Now, let's get to animate. We're gonna set up our scene here. We're going to first create a ground for our character to actually walk on by just making a simple cube, scaling it out, lining it up with the feet and side view. Next, we're going to hide extra controllers on a layer because we're not gonna need them for this. It's just going to make it too complicated. We're also going to select the geometry, hide his entire upper body and the clothes, everything just on a layer, so we can focus on just animating from the hips down. We're doing this so we can raise our understanding of the hips and the feet working together to a professional level faster. And then the last thing we're going to do is make some quick selects just to make it handy to grab the controller we're going to be using frequently through here. And we don't have to spin around the character all the time hunting and searching for those controllers to select it. This won't be a problem for you 2D animators though. Super jealous. Now let's get into the blocking. Opening pose is going to be a contact pose for the walk. So contact pose for the walk. One foot is going to be coming forward and making contact with the ground. We're going to use the foot roll to have the heel contact the ground first for that pose. Now you can see it doesn't reach very far, right? Why is that? Well, we need the hips to twist forward. So you should see some of the butt of the character, right? Because this leg is forward. The hips are actually what pulls that forward, that leg forward into position. And we're aiming to get a straight leg here. That would be ideal. But we don't want it to go so far that it's like locked out and you lose control of the foot. Like the controller starts moving away from it. That's where the leg is like busted. So right here you can kind of see that it starts to get like a bent leg. I'm trying to just push a little farther so that it's got the straight. That's the idea. And then here, I'm going to move this foot back. So we're kind of establishing the stride of the walk here. The rest of that is fine. The front view, I'll go and kick these feet out a little bit. But that's it. Make sure you're setting a key on everything. Okay. And then what we're gonna do is mirror this. So we're gonna go from frame 1 to frame 13 because it's 12 frames a step. And then we're gonna have the other foot come forward and this foot will be back. So we're gonna mirror this. And then
just using Animbot, it just flips it for us, or you can pose it out manually if you don't have a mirror tool. Okay, and I'm gonna pull this walk forward. Okay, now I want this foot to line up kind of where that heel is, because I want his speed going forward to be the same because he's going forward. Okay, that'd be forward a little bit more. Okay, so by hitting mirror, it automatically added the rotation, put this foot forward, kept this one back, doing the same pose, exactly the same. I can go ahead and middle mouse drag copy from frame 1 to frame 25, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 25. 12 frames a step, right? Because we start on frame. So always good to double check your math if you get confused on that. Make sure your timing is correct. Because for a generic walk, we're all pretty much on march time at 12 frames a second, like Richard Williams talks about in the Survival Kit. Okay. And you gotta make sure I only copied the cog and the 2 foot controllers. So make sure you copy the hits as well. But you're copying everything you should. Okay. Whoops. As I'm talking, I'm matching the wrong foot up. Should be this foot that I'm focused on. Okay, and we're just going to put in one more step so that he actually walks a little bit. If he doesn't take too many steps, if he only takes like 1 or 2 steps, it'll feel very, very short. It'll be hard to kind of see what's going on. So I'm going to copy now 13 to 37. So that's exactly 1, 2, 3, and then it will loop. So we got 4 steps essentially. And then we want this to go ahead as well. So we're over here. So now that we got the contacts in there, those are the most important poses, the storytelling poses that tell us how many steps the character is taking, that tell us that he's taking steps and he's walking. So the next part will be how do we break down how we get from one step to the next? How do we take those steps? To get our breakdowns in the right spot, we're going to want this curve, this translate Z of the cog to maintain kind of a straight line, like this linear line here. That means that our walk will have a consistent speed. He won't speed up or slow down at any point through here. And that's exactly what we want, so that it won't mess up our steps and it won't give us a different feeling to the walk. So we could manually move the cog forward for this, but we're going to use, go to frame 7, and we're going to use Tween Machine to do this for us. So if I just click in the middle here, it'll move everything right to the halfway point. And this actually moved the hip controller further than it should, like outside the cog, so that's not correct. But Tween Machine basically just works between 2 keyframes, and you say to favor the previous key or the forward key, and if we go right in the center, we're 50-50 between both. So there, I've just put it 50-50 between both. So now the cog, the hip, is going forward an equal amount, and he doesn't increase speed or decrease speed going from key to key. So we're keeping that straight line here. Okay, so we're starting to rough out that halfway position.
And we'll want to make sure that our rotation on the hip is also halfway. And that should be where our rotate Y is about 0 on the breakdown position. Now this foot that's planted taking the weight, that will be flat on this breakdown position, flat on the ground, because it's having to support all the weight. The hip, the upper body, everything would lift up on this leg. It would start to lift high up. And the back foot, we're gonna drop all the heel, raise there, actually lift this foot off the ground. It would be almost halfway through its swing, rotate the foot down, bring it forward, right? So he's actually in the middle of taking his step at this point. Start to come forward. You might have it go a little bit more forward, right? You can kind of flip through your poses there just to kind of feel that out, see if that distance seems correct for like a halfway pose. Feels pretty good. It might be like a little bit further back, but we'll see how that plays out when we get the other poses in there. Get this out of the way. And then, yeah, I can kind of feel that step now, right? That's what happens when we get that third keyframe in there. We start to feel the animation. So we're going to continue from here and put it in for the other steps as well. A lot of rinse and repeat here. Just using Tween Machine, so we're exactly like halfway each time. And it did the jump again, or remove the hip. So I'm going to pop that back by hitting the Tween Machine on the hip controller. Dropping the foot roll again on that foot, lifting up the cog there, so he goes higher. Losing the foot roll on the back foot, lifting that, bringing it forward, rotating it down, all that good stuff. And we'll just have to do this one more time. We can kind of speed through that section now. I just want to see if we can push the spacing here, maybe. I like to kind of keep that foot almost 90 degrees. And then just flipping through here, it feels like that foot's back a little bit more than I want, so I'm going to bring it forward. And we'll do this just one more time, but we can speed through that section, and then we'll go to the front view. All right, with the side view covered pretty good, we're gonna go to the front view to take a look at these breakdowns. Orthographic front view, scale things back so you can see everything, or track back rather. And then I wanna kick these feet in overall, I think. We tend to have our feet tucked in underneath our body weight quite a lot when we walk, and then our feet may go out or in terms of rotation. But as we have on frame 7 here, one foot is planted on this right side. So our weight will actually shift over to that right side because there's no weight on this left leg, the screen left leg. So we're going to have to shift the weight over with the cog, just translate it over X to be over top of that foot. And then with the hip, our hip actually goes high on this side. The side that takes the weight, it goes high on there, and there's no weight on the other leg, so it drops over there. Okay, that's really key in selling the walk from the front view, and then especially if you see it from perspective, got to have that weight shift in there, got to have that hip tilting correctly, and it really hits its extreme weight shift and tilt, extreme tilt. Rotate Z on usually on frame 7 here. And then we're just going to do this 2 more times. It's the opposite weight shift for frame 19. So that translate X goes to screen left. And then I'm just kind of playing around with how high up this goes from this view at the same time. Trying to put that weight shift in really quickly for the cog, and then now put in the rotate Z. So it's always going up on the side with the planted leg. And now we can really feel this walk from the front view, like a walk moving, just like we can from the side view, because we got those breakdowns. That ends our blocking plus phase, and we're going to move into blocking plus next. Now we're going to transition into the blocking plus phase. We're going to add the down and up poses that really break this walk down further and get us most of the way there, ready for auto tangent. Okay, so here we go. One, two, three. We're gonna just actually back that up. I will use the tween machine again to bring him forward an equal amount so he stays at a steady speed. I don't have to think about it too much. And then I'm gonna bring him down. I want him to drop down. You know, it's okay if we exaggerate too much. He goes too far down now, because we can always change it later, and then we know that we went too far. We know that that's too much for the walk that we want to create, if it is. And then I'm going to lift this back foot. So down poses are where we get this bent leg, and it's the last point of contact for this foot before it's coming off the ground. So we're gonna have a lot of heel raise here. Our weight starts to shift. So if you check that front view, our weight starts to go over. It starts to go over where the extreme is here on the passing pose. And we want to favor that. So if you use Tween Machine just for this, you could like select Translate X, and you could favor that pose to be closer to it. That might be too much, right? And why do we want to favor it? Well, we want to ease into that. We want to read that weight shift, and we want to zip through where there is no weight shift. So we want it to feel speedy through the contact pose to kind of hang out on the extreme here and give the character time to shift weight from side to side without feeling rushed. Okay. Now we're going to add Tween Machine here as well for the rotate Z. That tilt, you know, it's going here. I am just going to select the rotate Z and favor that. Okay. And for the rotate Y, we're going to favor the contact pose because that's the extreme twist, remember, in the hip. So on that down pose, I'm gonna ease out ever so slightly. See if that's too much favoring, but we want to be zippy through the middle because we want those hips to swing, you know, with some speed. If we had this, it would feel same speed the whole way through rather than kind of hanging out and then speeding up and then slowing down. Okay. Now the down pose has something that's interesting. Because our character is going down, if we had the body on, let me go to the side view real quick. If we had the body on, how it would affect the spine is as our character comes down, the body would rotate forward slightly. And you can have it a lot, you can have it a little, depends on the walk. Everyday walk would be subtle, but you can put it in exaggerated and tone it down. So we can use the cog to kind of rotate forward. Now here's the really interesting bit. The hip pushes up when this happens. I do it this way so that the cog and the spine controls work together. And the hip here is used as a shaper for the lower back to curl the back. If we had these spine controls in here, the reason for this is to get a C shape here in this lower back to have it curl in because our character's falling. So they would naturally tend to curl in. Our body can do different things in different ways. We can control it, but this is what happens. You know, we can control it with training. You know, if you're a gymnast, you can do different things, or a dancer. But this is what happens at a normal everyday walk. So our body will compress, it'll squash. So this is our squash pose, and we're building the hip and the cog to help with the spine as if it were there. Okay, so I'm just gonna undo that real quick. But I'm gonna have this kind of tucked, this hip tucking towards the stomach. Kind of round that out. And then on frame 10, we're gonna have the up pose. So I'm going to tween machine this, and then the up pose is up. Go figure. So it's the highest point in the walk. And I'm watching the center here to see what kind of arc I'm making. I'll just exaggerate it for now. Now this foot isn't staying to the ground. See, the toes are coming off the floor, and that's because it's not reaching. And then we will want to, with the rotate Z, we'll want to ease out of the tilt that's happening in that front view. So I'm just going to do that blindly because I know what's happening there. I can remember. And then the rotate Y will favor this pose because this is where most of the twist is happening. So we're gonna favor that to kind of slow into that so we can see it. And then this foot, I'm going to tween this foot coming forward as well. And here, this is where I'm also, like, again, conscious of that leg. I feel like this is coming up and forward a little too quickly. That looks better. Okay. I want to just make sure that this knee and this leg is kind of always coming forward and not getting stuck. So it gets a little bit, like, ideally I would have a little bit more room to play with there, but I think it'll work out. Okay, so now we're going to go and do that for the other steps. So really just rinse and repeat. You could essentially copy frame 4 to 16, but this is, you can see this is going the wrong direction. There are tools out there that will let you just flip stuff. You could go in the graph editor and hit /=-1 in the value box. So I could go here and I could type, I could go to the thing and then type /=-1 to flip this. So it's going the correct way. You can do that for each rotation. But there's also scripts, and Animbot has a mirror tool here. So I'm just gonna hit that to flip it. And I'm going to copy. So I just copied the hip. I'm going to copy the cog now. And then we're going to tween that so it's going forward. It's going to rotate down some. Coming down.
Alternatively, you can build walks to be like to walk in place. Oops. I need to copy that one. Foot roll to 0. So alternatively, you could build the walk to walk in place. You just get these 4 main poses of the walk in there, and then you would copy them and mirror them, and then you could have it start walking forward after you've built all the poses. But you know, I think this is a good way for you to get that handle on the mechanics. Whoops. So I think this is a great way to get you used to moving a character forward and get a handle on the mechanics. There'd be times where your character's like running and changing speed. Maybe they're going from a run to a walk and then a jump or something like that, right? And you'll need to just move your character forward and be used to doing that. So I think this is a good introduction. So there's a little bit of slippage here. Yep, foot. So slippage this way, I mean. So I just made that stable. Between 1 and 13 as well. I see the foot is kind of sliding in and out. So just bringing that down. Perspective. And we can change the foot arcs later. You could build this all into like super detailed blocking if you want. I tend to be a little bit looser with my blocking and should make more changes in auto tangent, but everybody has their preference. Oh, something I did forget while I was talking. The up pose, the cog comes up. And the hip will do the opposite. It'll extend down to give you a reversal in the body. So the body would be leaning back like so. And this helps you get the reversed curve in the hip. So that's what we're going for there. Then back to this down close. So I'm going to try to speed along through this here as we work this section out. Just going to tween that. Make sure he's lifting up. I just tweened it right in the middle so I could get the speed consistent still. Just for the cog. And then for this, rotate while going to favor 25. For the rotate Z, we're going to ease out. So we're slow through here. We speed up and then we'll slow down again, just like we're doing over here. And now the rotate X, I could do a quick pass on this. So we're hitting, I'll come back to this, I can get all of those in here. Okay, so passing pose, up pose, right here. And the cog will tilt up. We hide the grid, see a little better. So the graph editor really helps me keep track of where I am rotating and make sure I'm not missing anything. And then we're going to put in the last two down poses and up poses. So boom, just going to jump ahead and put that in for both of those. And bring it down the same amount, bring it up the same amount. And we can change this later. Okay. And then the hip, rotate Y, favors, rotate Z, favors the next key, 34, refavor the passing pose for the tilt on the rotate Z, and then for the rotate Y, we favor the contact pose over here. So use the tweet machine to just push that up here really quickly. Okay, and now we gotta make sure we add the rotate X in there. So I'm gonna curl the hip in, add a bit of tilt down. And on the up pose, I'm going to tilt the cog up, bring the hip down. We just gotta adjust the feet a bit. Okay, so that's feeling better. We do have that foot coming off the floor and we can add a lot of heel raise, but I'm trying to keep the heel raise low for the contact position. Maybe we add like a little bit more. And that means we can have a little more here. But I think what we'll do is we'll lower the overall height so that foot doesn't come off the floor so much and we don't have that much heel raise. Last down pose, just fix the feet. It's pretty much rinse and repeat. It can feel very analytical rather than creative because it's so formulaic, all these things that are happening. The creativity for walkthrough comes into play when you're adding like personality walks. When you're having a walk with attitude, you know, there's a lot that you could do to make a character look happy in a certain way or sad to a certain degree or something along those lines. And that's why you'd be really thankful that you learned how to do a walk the normal way first and to understand all the complicated, you know, physics that's happening here, the complicated mechanics. Kill raise coming up in the down pose. So there we manually went in and put in all those rather than copying and pasting and building the walk in place. And it's just good practice for your muscle memory, and it gets you used to moving a character around in space. And now I'd say we have a good blocking plus. We can take this further. You know, if we wanted to define more of the foot rotation, get the heights and everything correct. But for the sake of clarity of this tutorial, this challenge, I'm going to auto tangent this, I think, next to show you what happens with foot roll, and then how we can adjust the height of things to, you know, get the planted foot more stable on the ground and not have so much heel raise. And hey, by the way, if you're learning a lot, enjoying this walk, and you're very serious about your animation skills and you want to go pro and work in movies or games for a living, you should unlock pro mode if you haven't already. You're going to get harder challenges that build upon the ones that you're getting here, and it's going to help you become a pro faster. But they're only available to the animators who are taking themselves very seriously at the moment and have unlocked them via email. It's free to do so, so there's really no downside for you. Just go to unlockpromode.com. And for inspiration, check out some of the recent animations that were made for the second challenge. As we're refining this walk now, we've got all of our major poses. We're gonna grab all the controllers and open up the graph editor and just make sure everything is in auto tangent. And then we're gonna change our preferences from flat and stepped to auto. Save that. And then we should see everything here in auto tangent. All right. It's not horrible, but not great by any means. There's still a lot of things to clean up. You can see we got janky knees, we got janky foot pickup here. Looks like we got a little bit of slippage on the feet in certain sections, like here. You can see it slipping. So we're gonna clean all that stuff up, and we're gonna start by working on the cog first, making sure that's good from all the poses that we put in place in stepped. One of the we have a nice consistent speed in terms of going forward here, which is really key towards our steps, maintaining the normal stride. But here at the ends, we're easing into them, and that means that our walk is slowing down in those final frames and the starting frame. So I'm just gonna do that to kind of keep it more linear. And we're gonna look at the up and down here. This is something that we can play around with a lot to get the right amount of weight to maybe reduce like stretch that's happening on the leg, make it feel more subtle, more realistic, right? Or just more exaggerated. I think, you know, by default, I'm going to reduce this a little bit. So there's a kind of a big change right here where we need a lot of heel raise. I think I'm just going to try bringing this down some. I'll bring the high point down more and this down some. Kind of leave the contact where it is. Maybe a little bit taller, so just making this gap a little bit smaller, so maybe it subdues the up down a little. And then at the ends we have an issue as well. So one of the ways we can figure this out easier is to go ahead and turn on the cycling, and you can see that if this was to cycle, you can see that the tangent isn't really keeping the weight for us. So if we, for instance, change this one, you can see this side is going to hook up better, and then this curve coming into the next key is better.
Something we kind of lost track of as we were focused on other things in the stepped blocking plus was this side-to-side weight shift, right? We got the extremes in there, which is good, but we want to favor those extremes. So that up pose is easing out of this, and then we want to feel it speed up, you know, kind of as it comes down into the next extreme, and the weight shifts over here. So 16 is going to ease into that more. I'm going to leave the contacts where they're at 0. I think they're all at 0, which is nice. So, because the weight shift would be perfectly in the middle, supported by both feet that are on the ground at the time. And then the last bit is just going to be this tangent on the end and tangent in the beginning to just make sure it doesn't ease out from that contact position, but it's moving quickly up to that extreme, right? All right, so now we're going to check the rotations on the cog. Make sure they're playing nice. So here we're having that cog tilt down, right? We don't really want to delay a whole lot in coming down. And here we're gonna rotate it up. So we're favoring the up pose, just like we're favoring how long the cog goes up versus coming down. It comes down sharper than it goes up. So I'm favoring that in the rotation here. Okay. And that, you know, could be too much at any particular point. You can kind of tone that down maybe a little, just like we toned the up and down some. Right. And then we don't need to worry about rotate Y, rotate Z for this, so that's good. Next up would be that hip controller twist off the bat. The twist is the one we want to favor the most on the contact pose. We want to have our extreme there, and that's all good. That's hooking up. And then our rotate Z. Again, this is pretty much on point. The only thing we're going to swap here is just this, the ends of the curve here, to make sure it again, just like the weight shift, speeds through. You can see if you're looking at the target here to the center of the rotate tool, you can see it kind of creating arcs if you flip through here. You can see it kind of arcing up and over, and then it doesn't hit a wall here. It just kind of continues arcing. Right? So that's playing nice. Seems like this got a little bit wonky. Let's double check this. As we come down, we're bending up there. And then as we come up into the extreme, we're favoring that. So we'll want to have that tilt favor being up. Okay. There we go. And then this should be up like so. This should be down. And we're favoring here through these. And we could tweak this to have like a subtler impact. Now we're going to focus on this foot pickup stuff. So working on side view, and then we'll work on front view.
First, we're just gonna get rid of the sliding feet, and then we'll work on making the pickup smooth. And there's something else that I messed up on in the blocking, just because it's the first time I use this rig. The pivot point for the main foot controller is actually in the center of like the angle, and we want to be down here on that heel where this controller is, but we didn't key this. So on our contact poses here with this leading foot, we need to make this the pivot point and get rid of the foot roll here. Okay, so that's something we're gonna do. First, let's start with the sliding, get rid of all the sliding, and then we'll work on that. Some rotation from the front view that's moving around there that we'll clean up too. Some movement here. What's happening here is there's some rotation on that foot. So this was up there, or it wasn't keyed rather. So I'm just gonna flatten that out, and then there's a little bit of sliding going on here. You can see the curve goes up slightly here at the end. Just copy that over. Boom. That should stay put there now. Now we just have that rotation from the front view. You can see that controller moving a little bit. There's a little bit of slippage there. And then let's check that rotation stuff, which we don't have because the foot doesn't pick up yet. Cool. Okay. Now the rotations on the front, we can fix that really quickly. So you can see there's a little bit of a shift right here. Yeah, we want to get rid of that. Same deal there. Like, we don't need the main foot controller to do this, just because of where the pivot point is. It slides the whole foot around oddly. So I'm going to grab all of this rotate Y, rotate Z, and just zero that stuff out. Okay. I think we can also maybe bring the foot in overall. I think we'll maybe do that. And there's a little bit of an arc. We want to keep that. I'm gonna bring the foot in here just a little bit more. And then I want this to be this foot swinging out to screen right, so there's a little bit of an arc here. And polish will probably tweak this curve a little bit. But now there's a little bit of an arc there, and then here, when it arrives at this spot, I'd like it to be in again. Okay. And I'm just going to work on this foot for all the slippage and the foot pickups and plants and everything, and then essentially I'll just do the same thing for the other foot, but we'll speed that part up in terms of just the recording because it's the same deal. All right, now foot roll stuff, and we're ignoring knee pops for now because we want to get the foot doing everything that it should be doing and keyed properly, just like we are doing for the hips and the cog. And then we'll clean up the knee. If we change the feet, if we did the knee first and then we change the foot or change the cog, it would screw up what we did on the knee. We'd have to redo it anyway. So you want to save knee pops for the end after you've gotten everything in there that you would like, unless you feel like repeating things. I'm going to zero out the foot roll in the beginning here. This can be flat. It could have, it can have some rotation here. Oops, there. Heel foot roll. Okay, it can have some rotation here. That's fine. It's fine until the foot picks up, and then by 19, we're gonna have that at 0, and it should stay at 0 through here. And we can have a little bit of foot roll there as well. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. If we didn't have this keyed there, it might have a little bit more foot roll there. And then by the end, we would have even more because the foot is on the way to picking up. Now here on the foot pickup, it's really important here with heel raises, a common mistake that the last thing you want is this heel to feel like it's picking up and then slowing down and kind of stopping, because then the foot will feel like it's hitching, hesitating to lift off the ground, like he's going to trip or something, or he's unsure about taking a step. And part of that's coming from the fact that we're easing into the final extreme moment here. And I'm just going to do this so that we speed into that moment. We don't ease into it. And that's going to make more sense when we add another key here for the foot peel off to make this smooth. So 16 is a down pose, and then on frame 17, we're going to make a new key, and I'm just going to put that at 0. So that's a 1 frame drop off of that control. Okay, and we're going to come back to that. So every time a foot pickups, you're going to do this so that the foot roll doesn't influence the rotation of the foot, the rotate X. Now here, you want this to speed up and into that extreme. We could make this more intense. Depends on how subtle you want to keep it, but it should go. The foot roll should go from slower here to faster. And I think I'm gonna just use a little bit of stretch in there for this moment here. So, so the heel doesn't come off the ground and lock out, but I want to keep this heel speed kind of going. So it might be a little slower in the beginning and then pick up speed into the lift here. Now on this frame, we're going to manually handle this in between so that we can drop that foot roll in that 1 frame and have just rotate X on this foot until the foot's back on the ground. So I'm watching this heel spacing. I'm going to bring this forward a little bit. And I want to make sure as I scrub through this that that's smooth and it doesn't feel like it pops ahead too much there. I want that speed to feel smooth right there, just in that heel. And I think that feels okay. And I'm not worried about the toe. What we're going to do with the toe is I'm going to select this main controller and that toe controller, and then I'm going to share the keys to that toe. Now it's got keys where I have it on the main controller. And then I'm just bending that toe up so it doesn't go through the ground, okay? And then I'm gonna try to keep it on the ground and it's dragging here.
We could quickly kind of rough in some stuff here. Okay. Now, let's get this controller, the heel in there. I'm going to do the same thing and share keys from the main controller to this one. There we go. And on this frame, this heel is up. I'm going to make sure it's not locked out. So you could use a little stretch if you wanted to keep the foot down so it's not locked out, or you could just kind of go up to the extreme here until you see it click into place. So 34 there will do the trick. And the foot won't take 3 frames to come all the way down to the floor. So we're gonna drop the foot down there like this, like so. Boom. Okay. And that's all we need to do there with that controller. We'll just go to the other contact pose and do the same thing. So we're still kind of maintaining that straight, right? Boom. Okay. And then the foot's down in 2 frames. And that's taking care of those contacts. And now all we need to sort is that bit of stretch so we don't lock the foot out in the lift here. So we're gonna try that real quick. You can turn auto stretch on. I kind of prefer manually doing this, just to feel like I have a little bit more control over the shape. And we may need to go frame by frame. Let's see. So I just did the passing pose and the up pose with manual stretch, just trying to keep it just enough so that it's not locked out, but still straight. And I'll let the passing pose be a little bit more bent than the straight, or the up pose. So that first step is cleaner there. Same deal here, we're locking out, so I'm just gonna lengthen that foot. Again, you could put more heel raised than I did. I'm just going with the stretch at this moment to kind of keep the heel raised to the minimum. Seeing how it turns out that way. Hopefully the stretch isn't too noticeable. That's the thing, is you don't want the stretch to get too noticeable. Right. Okay, so that's much smoother in terms of foot pickup, plant, all of that good stuff, right? We're gonna save the knee pops for last and polish. For now, I'm going to do everything that we did for this foot to the other foot, and then we'll pick up all that other stuff in polish, as well as some other good things to just make this a bit smoother. In polish, we're going to just do some little cleanup, little additions here. We're gonna fix those knee pops, and we're gonna add some tiny rotations to the feet, and do some offsetting just on our rotations to make the overlap a little bit better.
I'm going to start by just adding these little rotations here. You could feel free to ignore these if you wish. They're very, very minor. Let's see. Probably want to put them on the main foot control here. So we've got an arc kind of coming out to the side for these feet every time they take a step, which is nice. It's just when they come in, let's see, let me bring up Animabot. It's just when they when they're kind of coming in for this landing or so we've got arcs, you know, when the feet are taking off and kind of coming into this landing here. This one needs a little bit of work, actually. You kind of go out to the side. So we want to polish that stuff up, check that stuff. You want to have this arc. You want to have this, you know, come out at an angle from the front view. We've got that in the foot, but this translation, but we don't have a rotation right now. So like we can make this a little bit more dynamic. You know, if we have like a little bit of a drag on that foot, and then maybe through here too, you can have like a little bit of foot twisting. So like you could have, hide that for now. You can play around with. You can see just how I added that little bit of drag in there. It starts giving it a little bit of life. You could have like this foot rotate out a little bit more, and like as the foot is coming forward here, you could have that kind of drag a bit into this with an arc, right? So we can have rotation there. And then as you come down, you can let the foot kind of go back this way, or you could have the foot, you know, kind of land and kind of stay over here. And maybe this is a little bit less. So the whole time that foot falls, there's a bit of an arc to it as it comes down, right? And then of course you'd want to go in here and go to your graph editor and then just make sure that for the frames that it's still on the ground that you kind of keep it at that position. And that's going to give these feet a little bit more of an organic feel. You might decide that at a certain point it's like the feet are too far out, but you know, you can play around with that. You can also turn the feet in, you know, go pigeon-toed. We can play around with that stuff. But all that starts to make the feet more dynamic, just feel more natural, just a little bit, right? So pretty easy there. The other thing that I'd want to play around with is offsetting. So, you know, right now we have some decent overlap. When the character reaches the extreme down, that's also when we have the extreme rotate down for the cog. And then for the hip, that's when that goes up the most. But that's happening on the exact same frame. And what we know about overlap is nothing happens at the same exact time. So it gets a little bit nicer with these rotations if we offset it by just a frame, so that it translates down, hits the extreme, and then a frame later, the rotation hits the extreme. Just makes it a little bit more of a smoother move for us there. So you can do that just by turning on the cycle there with those buttons in the graph editor and then just sliding that one frame later. Okay, and you should see a bit nicer drag on that controller and then a bit better feel in the body of the character. You can do the same thing with all of the rotations. I don't think you need to see me do that for all of them, because it's really the same deal. The one that's maybe questionable is the twist, because you kind of need that for the way it is with the contact foot. So if you do add that offset, just make sure you don't lose the straight leg and the contact, that it doesn't screw things up too much there in the walk. But
But yeah, that's nice polish addition just to add a bit smoother movement. And I think overall you'll see the walk looks better. Last polish thing for us is just those knees, and this rig has a controller right there on the knee, which is handy. Other rigs may not. They might have a knee slide on the foot controller or something like that. Some kind of stretch way to handle that knee. You can still put a locator in that position on the leg and then just track it, like I'm going to do here. And here you can see, the reason for our knee wobbles and pops is this section here. There's a really big spacing jump between these frames, and then here it stops almost to nothing and then shoots backwards and kind of has a clunky arc, right? And then same deal here, clunky arc there as that foot comes into landing, big spacing jump, and then it comes backwards. I think in general it feels nice to have the knee go forward whenever you can. Yeah, I mean, you can get away with it going backwards. I just think it tends to look just a little bit better if it's always going forwards. And anyway, the most important thing is just to have the spacing and the arcs as nice as smooth as you can, and then that knee is not going to pop so much. So this is always something you have to fight in 3D because we're really limited in proportions. Whoops, make sure I key this first. Now I'm gonna copy all the keyframes from the main foot control to the knee first. And here we go. So I will be keying this so that it's not jumping and spacing so much. That's my plan anyway. I'm going to try to maintain the leg shape as much as I can because we want to still have, bends and stuff and straights, squash and stretch in that leg. Here I'm going to try to have the leg forward though. So some delicate frame by framing, and this all gets messed up. If you change the foot, it's going to move the knee. If you change the hip, it's going to move the knee. So if you did this work first, you'd have to come back and redo this every time. It gets kind of exhausting. So workflow wise, that's why you save these little details for the end. And since there was a big spacing jump in the beginning, I'm just cushioning back that way. And then I think that helps solve our other problem of making sure the knee is coming forward here, because of space to go somewhere to come forward without it going very far. Okay, so that's probably going to look better. I'm just kind of scrub it here. Yeah, it doesn't seem very distracting for us. We do feel it hit that kind of uptick there. And here, we could do this, but then we're losing that straight leg. So I think if I come back, maybe we'll just kind of fall into this. That would fix that enough. And then here, I'm going to try to favor back towards that straight leg. It'd be nice to have that for a couple frames away, so we can properly read a straight. And then same deal. I'm going to pull this back, In general, I feel like our knee was very far forward for our down poses as it is. So this kind of helps with that.
Okay. This spacing temperature on this arc tracker is kind of nice because I can make sure that it stays closer together through here. That's what that cooler temperature is, and then it gets warmer, so I can see where the spacing is jumping more. So I don't really have to do it for this section, but it's just making it a little bit better. And that should fix our knee pop stuff. But let's take a quick look just at that knee. Yeah, I think way smoother than the other knee. You can see a lot of jiggle in this one here. How that pops back a lot. And this one just seems a lot more solid. And I don't think we still get our straight through here. Still get some bends. It feels good. So just apply that to your other knee, and then you're golden. You're good to go. And learned a lot about how the hips and the feet work better to get a much smoother, more organic, natural feeling to them. And this is a formula that's really going to propel you to make any kind of body mechanic shot in the future. You can come back to this understanding of, hip goes down, foot bends, and that gives energy to lift up and take a step. And when you take a step, there's a weight shift. And the hip tilts, in the rotate Z, the hip tilts towards up on the side with the leg that's planted on the ground. All of those things give you a really good formula, a really good guide on what to do, even if you didn't have any reference, right? It gives you a lot to go off of for creating more advanced body mechanic shots. Now, click or tap the screen for more animation lessons, and I will see you in the next animation challenge. Happy animating.